Welcome to another episode of Experience Andy Wines Live, our opportunity every week to come together and share one idea that's going to make us great this week. It's all about leaning into the greatness within us and finding our own unique ability. And today we're going to be talking about the power of the word when. First, I always want to take a moment to share a moment of gratitude. The whole purpose behind gratitude is to seek the good in this world. When you're looking for the red car, you'll see the red car. And I'm grateful the people that challenge me. I've had some people recently, I've had a couple rough conversations as of late. And the people that challenge me this morning, I was driving into work and I was thinking about particularly challenging conversation I had recently. And I really wanted to bring out you language. Last week I talked about you versus I language, or 2 weeks ago. And then last week I talked about issues versus ishme's. And I really wanted to push them and push their buttons and say, you did this and you did that. And you make me feel this way, right? All those really limiting self-beliefs I've had about the power people have over me. And when I started shaping that as to I language, I really started taking ownership of who I am. And I realized, man, there's gratitude in that. Because it's real simple for me to go through life when I'm operating, chasing my mountain, climbing it, using my I language, those 6 most powerful statements starting with I. It's really simple when there's no obstacles in front of me. And as soon as I have those obstacles, I have people with those challenging conversations, it's easy for me to blame others. I know that. In the blame, excuse, denial, I'm a blamer. That's my predisposition. I want to say, you did this and you did that. And let's talk about the facts. Let's argue about that versus taking that ownership and using I language. And so I'm grateful for the people that bring out that in me, because without them, I wouldn't be able to test my own theories. I wouldn't be able to live a life of abundance. And instead, I would be living a life of scarcity. Without those challenges, I don't become stronger. I told someone recently during a conversation, I said, I don't ask for the load to be lighter. I ask to be stronger. And so for all those people that have challenged me in conversations and in my life, I'm grateful for them because they test my resolve. They push me every time I achieve greatness in those moments. I level up a little bit. I move the needle 1 degree, and that 1 degree over time is huge change in my life. And so I'm grateful for those people. And so my challenge this week for you is find the greatness within you. Be grateful for maybe the people that push you to be great, and find the greatness within the people that push you closer to the person you are destined to become. There we go. There's our gratitude for today. Next thing we talk about, paying the bills. I've been doing a lot of workshops lately. Here locally, I got a couple opportunities recently to do some workshop for local companies. So whether you're local here to southeastern Wisconsin, or Wisconsin, the whole place I can drive in a car and back in the day, doing workshops. I also get on planes. Planes, trains, automobiles get me places I want to be so I can serve you. The Language Leadership Workshop is anywhere from 45 minutes up to 4 hours. It's transformational. People are going to walk in with limiting self-beliefs and walk out with a vision board. And we talk about the power of that language so that individuals can lead themselves and be amazing for themselves and their families and your companies, because it always comes down to what value are we getting from our organization. I was in Orlando 2 weeks ago. I got my survey results back. Great results, great things that people have said about what and how transformational it was. A week after I spoke with the CEO of the company, about a week and a half later, he was to the moon and back. He was excited. His team was happy and engaged. When they came back in the Monday after the workshop, they were all about it. So for those organizations out there, individuals that want to transform the language and transform the mindset of those employees, it's a great opportunity for us to come out and do a workshop anywhere, again, for 45 minutes, like a lunch and learn, all the way over to a 4-hour training for your teams, anywhere from entry-level employees all the way up to senior executives. We've done them all. Those people, let's find those together. All right, let's talk about the underrated word of when. When I think of the word when, it's going to be a theme here. It's weird, which is also really weird. I wrote it down a few times. And of course, when you write a word down more than like twice, start questioning my writing it down. It starts looking funky. So I wrote it down a few times in my notes here. All right. So when, often people think about when as a question, myself included. Who, what, when, where, why. Actually, it's on my board right now. I talk about when, where, who, what, how, and why. Getting to the source of the conversation. It starts with when, because the when is the now or the pre-designated time that this is agreed upon. And then there's the where we are, and then the who, the surfacey stuff. And then it gets into the what, the how, and the why, the good stuff. Now let's think about when as an answer instead of a question. One of my favorite things to do, like I talked about a second ago when it comes to your vision board, is SMART goals. Singular, measurable, obtainable, relevant, and time bound. That's our when is this going to happen? When I do my workshops, people leave with their BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal, written in a SMART goal format. And then they do milestones to get closer to that big, hairy, audacious goal, written in that SMART format. And so it's pretty simple. All right, singular, I'm going to do this thing. Measurable, did I do it? Yes or no. Is it obtainable? Is it something I can do? Yes. Is it relevant? Yes. This milestone gets me closer to this BHAG of mine. When are you going to do it? Because when we choose not to answer that question, we give ourselves unlimited time and space to come up with excuses, to blame others, to be in denial about how important that thing is. Also, the word is ambiguous versus when. One of my favorite people of all time, I was going to say business coach, mentor. Yes, favorite people. Let's put that down. It's favorite people. I've known this gentleman about 9 years, Mr. Brad Herda, here locally in Milwaukee, is a Blue Collar Podcast. He is also a coach for Focal Point Coaching, primarily working with generational businesses. Shout out Brad Herda. Brad Herda is famous, and I quote him in my book for this. It's not if, it's when. So I've been on a lot of Zoom calls, especially during the pandemic with Brad, when we were coaching together and amongst each other. A lot of business owners struggling at the time. How do we overcome these objections and issues throughout the pandemic days? And even since then. And people say, if this happens, then this. When this happens. And all of a sudden, Brad is famous for that, right? It's a Bradism, we all know, in our circle of trust, our circle of people. When you say the word if, Brad will low-key, under his breath, when, and then you force yourself to restate the statement. Because if is ambiguous, if is out there. When is a time, and sometimes it's a place. When I arrive here, when I get to this place in my life, when this time elapses, I will have achieved this. And we grow up in life like that. You go to school, it's when you turn 16, you get your driver's license. And when you turn 18, you're an adult, kind of. Right? When you're 21, you can drink. When I graduate this, I'm going to go there. And there's these things, right? When I graduate college, I'm going to get the job. And when I get that first paycheck, I'm going to go buy that thing I've always wanted. And when I save up this much money, I'll buy a house. And there's all these whens they're designed for you. And then you hit about 30, and all of a sudden, you're in charge of all your whens. Like I tell my 10-year-old daughter, right? She always says, when I'm a teenager, when I'm a grown up, when I do this. And I say, first off, let's not get too excited about getting older. Enjoy being young while you can. Enjoy the magic of a childhood before you're domesticated by life, right? So when also can be now. When I'm now and when I'm here, when I'm naive, how are you going to take advantage of it? Because she's still at that age of chasing those whens. Some point down, 25, 30, all of a sudden, people stop chasing the whens. And they live in the moment. They become 83% of Americans that are plateau people. They have no goals. 83% of Americans do not have goals. 14% of Americans have goals and never write them down. That means 97% of our population does not live in a when world. The top 3% of individuals, from a goals perspective, not success or anything else, top 3% from a goals perspective, write down their goals. They write them with the when in mind. And now you, as an adult, get to decide what that number is, what that date is, what that boundary is. When this person does that, I do this. It's actually one of my favorite tricks I teach people in operational processes. It's called when-then language. People want to what-if things to death. What if this happens? And what if that happens? And so I say, let's use when-then language. When this happens, then what will you do? I use this in a coaching conversation over the weekend. Someone I was talking to wants their significant other to do something. And we said, okay, there's 3 scenarios here. Either they do it out of buy-in, they're excited to do it. They do it merely out of compliance because you asked them to or told them to, and they're going to do it, but they're going to do it half-assed, or they're not going to do it at all, right? Because they said, what if this and what if this? I said, oh, there's only 3 logical scenarios. And they said, I really want them to be bought in. I really want them to get excited about doing this thing with me. Okay, so that's green. So when that happens, what? You'll feel loved. You'll feel appreciated. You'll feel accepted. Awesome. Okay, what happens when they only do it because you told them to do it? They do it out of compliance. They do it half-assed. They do it to check the box. Then I'm going to be frustrated. Okay, you're frustrated. Okay, what happens when they don't do it at all? In the timetable, hey, do this thing within a week. They don't do it at all. And I have to remind them, and I have to bug them, and I have to poke them. I'm not going to be happy. Okay, When then? When they don't do it, what are you going to do? Right? Start there. I'm going to break it off with them. Okay. When they do it out of lack of out of compliance, then what are you going to do? I'll tell them why I want them to do it. Re-encourage them more. Okay, good. When they do it exactly the way you want to do it on the timetable, what are you going to do? I'll accept it. Okay. Are you going to celebrate it? Are you going to re-encourage that person? Are you going to tell them how much you love them and how much it meant to you? Because that's also important. And when you preload yourself with those when-thens, then when the stimulus shows up, when they disappoint you, then you can respond proportionally because you've already put in your head how you're going to respond. And this is the difference between reacting to the stimulus versus responding to the situation. In a situation when you ask somebody to do something, there's only a few logical outcomes. So then you get to have the choice. Do you want to celebrate the person for doing the amazing thing they did? Do you want to give them that carrot, right? A little bit of instrumental motivation to go with the intrinsic, they did a good job? Or do you want to just expect it? And then all of a sudden, you really don't really appreciate them, and you start to take them for granted because you're not focusing on the greatness that they did with you. When someone doesn't do what you ask them to do you yell and scream and throw a fit? Do you show them your emotions? Or do you respond with your words and say, hey, I'm frustrated. I really wanted you to do this. This is important to me. And then you get to the most powerful when-thens. When you start a sentence with I feel is one of our 6 most powerful ways to start a sentence. I feel this way, insert emotion, clear and concise, as tight as you can get it. Not I feel this. When you that. Let's look at our scenario again. I feel loved when you did the thing I asked you to do. I feel frustrated when you did the thing I asked you to do and you bitched about it and you did it halfway. I'm frustrated. I feel unloved, disappointed, taken for granted when you choose not to join me on my journey. And so now it's not, you son of a bitch, you ruined my life. It's a proportional response of how you feel. The beautiful thing about when you articulate your feelings in words, it's inarguable. You can argue the facts and figures of the case. You can argue about what was understood. You can argue about the expectation when it's not very clear. You cannot argue about the feelings somebody have. And when you think about things, when you go into a situation, you've already invested an idea of the outcome, then you can respond. It's all about getting in those reps. Reflection is the first step. Reflect on a situation similar to this, or a situation with this person that was similar. How did you respond? How did you feel? Anticipate what you might feel. In the moment, be aware of how you're feeling so that when you receive that stimulus, then you're able to respond to the situation. That, ladies and gentlemen, is real-time resilience. And that's what we're building up. To be able to reflect on what happened, to be aware of the feelings you may or may not have, and then to, in real time, have the resilience to maintain the integrity that you have, to be able to respond to the whole situation, even when the person does 1% right. Are you going to celebrate the 1% because you want to get 2% someday? Or are you going to ostracize them for the 99% they did wrong and they'll never give you 1%? That's a choice. The power of when. You, the individual, get to decide what that line is. When am I going to achieve my goals? When am I going to step up to the milestone? When am I going to start building in daily habits and routines that get me closer to the mountain I am climbing? You get to decide that. Not if, never if. When I decide to do those things. You get to decide what your boundaries are. When my boss says this, I'm going to look for another job. When my spouse does that, I'm going to stand up for myself. When my spouse does this, I'm going to go out of my way to show them love because that's what I want to do, to get more of that thing. The when-then thing is great. Whether you perceive something to be good or bad, positive or negative, it applies. And then you can start using sentences and language like, I feel this way when you ... And it sounds janky and it sounds scripted, and it is. It's the Mad Libs to real life. It's the prepping you to start articulating what that thought is. I feel this way when you is a preparatory for you to start digesting that in your head so you can get out the emotion and you can get out the action. Change up the word when you say it in real time. I guarantee you, though, when you start using that equation in your head, start dropping in those feelings that you have, start dropping in tight, the verb, small thing. This is the thing you did, right? Not like you were checked out. No, you picked up your phone right in the middle of a conversation. Because the smaller the target, the more likely you are to hit it or miss it. Hey, I want you to pay attention to me more. The fuck does that mean? Big target. We don't know if we hit it. Hey, I want you to keep your phone turned off for the next 30 minutes while we're at dinner. Okay. All right, going back to that SMART goal. Singular, measurable, obtainable, relevant, time-bound. That simple. Then, when the person succeeds, when the person gives you the time and attention, because quality time is your love language, or because you're working with your boss and you don't want them to be distracted because you want to feel heard and feel appreciated, then you know what to do. And when they pick up their phone within those 30 minutes, you also know what to do because you already told yourself what you would do. You're letting people know your boundaries. That's a beautiful thing. Again, you have absolutely no expectations of the other person. You have boundaries for yourself that you get to decide with your when. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you incorporate this type of language into your life, when you start setting your own boundaries, when you decide what right looks like and where you're going to go, then you'll know whether you're on the right track or not. You know if the people that are coming along to your left and your right are the right people or not. And then you could decide. You get to live every day. You die once, you live every day. You get to decide every day how you are going to go about your journey. Who is going to be allowed to go on that journey with you? And then you will live a righteous life. As always, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your time. I appreciate it when you show up for me. I appreciate it when you challenge me. I appreciate it when you are vulnerable with me. In order to do that, it comes down to 3 very simple things. Do the fucking thing. Tell the fucking world. Show the fuck up. And we'll see you next week when you show up for yourself.